This episode is brought to you by Audacia Capital. Audacia Capital is a leading fixed income specialist on the Irish Stock Exchange. Audacia Capital is known for its bold and innovative approach in the corporate bond space. For more information, visit our website at audaciaplc.com.
This is the Glenn Hoddle Footy Show. I'm Glenn Hoddle.
Welcome to the Glenn Hoddle Footy Show. This is episode 35. Episodes are released every week, and we hope you'll join us throughout the season. One of Glenn's very first signings for Chelsea, Gavin Peacock, is our special guest today, discussing his new book, A Greater Glory, which is now available to buy. We also look back at the best of this week's footy action in the UK and Europe, and preview the FA Cup final at Wembley on Saturday. Glenn also answers questions from the Evening Standard newspaper for his weekly column Ask Hoddle, which you can read every Monday. So Glenn, we'll hear from Gavin a little bit later in the podcast, talking about his time with you at Chelsea and of course his life story in the book. And let's start by looking back though at a great week for English football in Europe. And as you predicted many times on the podcast, both Chelsea and Manchester City, they made it to the final of the Champions League, an all-English final, and both providing fantastic performances in their midweek victories.
They were excellent. They really were. I mean, you know, Man City, very professional again, and just had too much for Paris in the end. You know, even I felt in the first leg it was the same there. The way they came back in that leg, and then at home they were accomplished. They've got that confidence. They've got that little bit of swagger about them now, City. But I was very, very impressed with Chelsea. I've got to say, Chelsea could have actually been. This could have been an unbelievable one of those results in the history of Chelsea's football club. That could have ended up a 5 or 6-0 thrashing of Real Madrid. You know, the great Real Madrid, and that would have gone down in history. In some ways, Chris, I'm pleased it was only 2-0 for Chelsea, because I think people might have got carried away. The fact that, you know, they won 2-0 was probably a better result for them. They've got through to the final, but you know, the way they played, it could have been 5 or 6. They were excellent, and Tuchel's got them playing some beautifully what I call balanced football. They're such a tough team to actually penetrate and get in behind, yet they can play with the ball. They've got really good shape. They've played the same shape ever since he arrived. Every player knows exactly his jobs, and yeah, they're looking very impressive. And then you go and see them beat City at the weekend here again. Incredible performance. You know, just that is giving them so much belief now. You know, it's going to be a titanic battle. Can they beat Man City 3 times in a season in big games? You know, wow, that's a big ask. But who knows? They look like they've got that swagger and that little bit of confidence that, you know, it's not turned into arrogance. It's confident. They feel as if they can beat anyone.
What stood out for me, as you know, I'm a Chelsea fan, have been for, I don't know, a million years, it seems. A good 60 years or something like that. What stood out for me at Manchester City was at 1-1. A lot of clubs would have gone, well, you know, it's a good result. We've earned the draw. We'll go away with a point. The 93rd minute, Chelsea was still attacking, and with Alonso up front and Reece James up front, they really went for it and said, look, this is us. This is what we do. And a lot of clubs would have just gone 1-1. Let's get home. Lots of games coming up.
No, that's very true. They kept going forward. They kept hitting on the break. They knew they had Real Madrid where they wanted them. They knew they had to throw people forward, but they were prepared to throw people forward when they needed it. You know, Mendy came up with one particularly world-class save. And second half, you know, Real Madrid couldn't produce anything really. Didn't create a chance, and it was there for the taking. And really, they had 4 1-on-1 with the goalkeepers where. You know, I was worried at one stage that it was going to be that old story of not taking chances and and Real Madrid go the other end and get an equaliser. But in the end, Mount came up with a really important goal. And yes, that's the philosophy of Tuchel. He wants them to play, and they did the same at City this weekend. Before we leave the final, I hope common sense prevails and comes into, we've got to play this in England, whether it's Wembley or Old Trafford or Villa Park, between the two clubs. Please, UEFA, have got to show some common sense, because it's a pandemic. Turkey has gone on the red light scenario. Why on earth would we send a load of English or,
I think the government's got involved as well, which is always a positive, because it's that's a very high status, and they are talking to UEFA. Yeah. Wembley is supposed to be booked out for the playoffs, but the Tottenham's ground's available. It's got all the media facilities you'd ever need in the world.
I mean, Tottenham. It's not as if any crowd.
Olympic Stadium, West Ham. Why not there?
Yeah, but even Villa Park in between the two, between the two clubs. But at the end
Cardiff, go to Cardiff or somewhere.
It's going to be full house. It's not going to be a full house. It's it's only going to be 22,000, I think. So at the end of the day, to make English supporters, they won't go over there if it's red light as well.
They won't be allowed to. Never mind, and the clubs won't be allowed to sell the tickets, will they? The government won't let the clubs sell the tickets.
So let's hope that for the sake of City fans and Chelsea fans who can go, that they're going to experience a Champions League final, and it should be in this country under these extreme circumstances with the pandemic. They're all, the government is still saying, don't take your eye off the ball, distancing, let's be sensible. And there's other countries like Turkey, like India, other countries that are still very much in trouble. So we've got to respect that, and we've got to be understanding and make sure we play it safe, and let's hope that they do the right thing.
Yeah, very good point. And I think it doesn't make any sense. You'd have to be a really top-class lawyer to find a defence for sending people to Istanbul at the moment. And I don't think anyone out there can find any logical steps for doing that.
No, I think you're right, Chris. I think Petrocelli
and a few others will all be in there.
Petrocelli, Mason. Yeah.
Perry Mason, he'd get the deal done. Yeah,
Mason, they wouldn't be able to get him off.
About 100 years ago. Terrific. Talking about the Premier League then very quickly, some amazing results on the weekend. Leeds Spurs 3-1, didn't see that coming. Chelsea win at Manchester City, didn't really see that coming. But Newcastle winning 4-0 at one stage away at Leicester, and it finally finished 4-2. Fantastic for Steve Bruce and the boys, but of Leicester fallen into the trap that they fell into last season, where the squad is just slightly too slim and it's letting them down.
Yeah, that could be the case. The same. It was ironic. Last year, similar thing happened. I don't think. Hey, listen, this wasn't the reason, because Newcastle, I thought on the night, were excellent. They broke so quickly. Their counter-attacking football was incredible. It really was. Done it with Wilson, looked great up there, and they sort of sucked Leicester in and hit them on the break. I think Johnny Evans coming out in the warm-up was a big blow to Leicester, I must admit, but it wasn't the reason why they lost 4-2. Whether they've got their minds set on the FA Cup coming round the corner, FA Cup final, which is massive for Leicester to win that. They've won the Premier League in the last 4 or 5 years ago, and now to actually put that in the history of their club is a massive FA Cup win. If they can beat Chelsea, it's going to be a difficult task for them. But I think they may have took their eye off the ball, but they've got to get back on the Champions League bus, because they've given other people that little opportunity. The door's open, and people in this Premier League will smash through it if you do that. And they've got to get back on the horse again, as I say.
Chelsea have moved into third, a point ahead of Leicester now, and they've been chasing Leicester for many, many weeks throughout the season. West Ham losing. They're now, 5 points off Leicester, who are in fourth. Liverpool, a point behind them. Tottenham, a point behind them as well. And Everton, another point behind. But the FA Cup final is coming up on Saturday at Wembley. There will be a crowd there. That's going to be fantastic. How do you see that playing out? Is there any way that Leicester I know it's 90 minutes or maybe extra time. On a one-off game, anything can happen. But would you be backing Chelsea to beat Leicester in the cup final?
Well, I think they're favourites. There's no doubt about it. The way Chelsea are playing at the moment, they've beaten Real Madrid, knocked them out. They've beaten Man City. They are hot favourites. But I think Leicester, actually, it suits Leicester to play like that. Leicester are always at their best when they're the underdogs and no one's expecting them to win. So I think they will be a little bit of a wounded animal, and that'll be dangerous for Chelsea. And I think they'll play a lot better. I think that will, they'll be looking forward to that. It'll be a massive game for the club, as I say. They've never won the FA Cup, so let's be fair. It's going to be high on their agenda. Who knows? Chelsea might might have their mind on other things with the Champions League round the corner. I don't think so. I think Chelsea have got the strongest squad with Man City. So whatever team Tuchel puts out, it's capable of winning the FA Cup. I think Leicester have got to play. Vardy hasn't had a great run recently. I think he scored 2 in about 22 games. He's got to come to the fore in the final, and I think they've got to, all their top players, Maddison, Tielemans, people like this have got to have a real sort of 9 out of 10, a blind game, and Leicester can win. There's no doubt about that. They've got the capabilities, but I see only a Chelsea win.
This episode is brought to you by the Lily White Foundation. We believe sport is fundamental to the development of young people. But sadly, many young people in difficult financial or social circumstances don't get the opportunities most of us take for granted. The Lily White Foundation supports projects that help children and young people take part in sports and activities. For more information, go to lilywhitefoundation.com. You're listening to the Glenn Hoddle Footy Show podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with Glenn, this is how to do it.
To get in touch with Glenn with a question for a future Footy Show podcast, you can email glenn@midnightuk.co.uk or send a tweet to @midnightmix.
Well, time now to hear from former Chelsea midfielder and captain Gavin Peacock, who, after leaving the world of football, moved to Canada to become associate pastor. He has now written a book about his life called A Greater Glory, From Pitch to Pulpit, which has just been released. Glenn and I spoke to Gavin to find out some of his best Chelsea memories and started by asking him what it was like transforming from football life to what he's doing these days.
Well, first of all, it's great to be with you and Glenn, Chris. And it's been a really interesting path. I mean, I had an 18-year career as a professional footballer. Then I retired in 2002, and I was looking at possibly going into management. And Jerry Francis had been my manager at QPR, and he said, like, you've been captain at all your teams, and I think you've got leadership there. You should do your coaching badges. In fact, I even remember Glenn letting me and Dennis Wise take a training session in my first season at Chelsea, or second season at Chelsea, and just kind of, I quite enjoyed that. So I did consider it, and my dad had been a manager, so I did know what it took, and it's 24/7, etc. At the same time, I was getting a lot of offers for media, so I went down the media path just to see how it would go for a time, and it went quite well with the Beeb, and I worked my way up there, and so I was going to continue along that path. There was something in the back of my mind that said it won't be forever, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then in 2006, my wife, Amanda, got quite ill. She had a kidney infection. She was in hospital. And as happens with suffering, often it recalibrates your focus a bit. And I began to think about other things and maybe leadership in the church. And my church leadership affirmed that. And then I started doing some studies at Cambridge in biblical studies at the same time when I was doing my media work. And then I said to Amanda, I think I'm going to give up the second dream career and take some time to do my master's studies and prepare for church ministry. And then we looked at going away to do the studies. We'd been coming to Canada for quite a bit, somewhere where I wasn't known, and they just hear what I had to say from the Bible. And we ended up staying there, and now we're 12, 13 years in to a Canadian experience.
That's magnificent, fabulous, Gary. And it's great to talk to you. It really is. And one question, just whilst you were talking about you, I didn't realise, Gavin, until I read your book, which is fantastic, by the way. I love the read, and everyone out there should buy it and read it, because it's not just your football life. It's really a great big mixture of the two. It's wonderful. But I didn't realise that you had your faith when you were sort of 18.
Yes.
Around 18 is when things started to change for you spiritually.
Yes.
That must have been such a massive feeling. I don't know. It's not the word a crutch to lean on, but it must have given you so much strength. Being a footballer, having to know all the things we have to do when you become a footballer.
Yeah, no, it was, Glenn, and I mean, I had an advantage in some ways. Like Dad had been in the game, I had a great example and a great advisor, and all of this. I knew what to expect, but because my identity was totally tied up in being a footballer, and I'd achieved the schoolboy dream, everything the world says will make you happy. You got the career, the money, the fame, and yet if I played well, I was up. If I played bad, I was down, and my identity was completely tied up in football. When I became a Christian at age 18, football found its right place, if you like, in my life, and so my faith was first, and then football fell into a secondary position. I still played with great passion. I think I was actually a better player for it, but as you say, it gave me that sense of perspective that grounded me at a young age through the rest of my football career.
I would imagine that when I'm casting my mind back to when I was 17, 18, got in the first team, there was still, it must have helped you at that tender age. There's a lot of fear comes in, a lot of anxiety and fear when you're young. You don't really know your game yet. And obviously you're in the big world, the big picture of football, and it can be a harsh world. That must have been such a strength for you to carry on and through the ups and downs, because it's the downs that are the big test, aren't they, as a footballer? Not when everything's going hunky-dory.
No, absolutely. I think, I would say that when a man becomes a Christian, if they're a footballer, suddenly their sense of purpose and value isn't tied up to the sum of their performances on the field. Or during the week or on a Saturday. It's more than that, and that all of a sudden drives out the fear, and is a great steady and stabilizing factor in your life, because you're not fearful and on edge that's if that doesn't go right, then the rest of my life won't. So I mean, it's like football, it's guys are on edge all the time. Injuries is another one. You're always an injury away or a tackle away from the career ending, or you not being as good a player as you could be. So again, having my Christian faith is something to look at beyond the game itself, gave great perspective within the game.
Yeah, I would imagine that as a youngster, when you're a footballer, it's your world. It's absolutely the number one priority in most people's mind. Whereas for yourself, it was number two. It probably, it was your secondary thought, really. Your faith comes first, and not many youngsters at that age have got that strength behind them. They really haven't, and it comes over in that book, as in your book as well, which is really poignant. Yeah. But I must, whilst you brought up it's made me smile. When you said about the coaching, I remember the time, I did it with a few players. I said, Wisey and yourself, I think it was a couple of days, I said, you're going to do a session. So I'll let you two go off and plan. And you did a great job, you two. And you sat down and you played. Do you remember the day when we did Frank Sinclair and Eddie Newton?
Not quite so good.
Not quite so good, was it? It was.
But the thing is, Glenn, I went home, like talk about preparing right. I went home when you told me that, and I've really done my homework. I've sat down. I'm looking. I'm thinking, I'll do this session. That I've rang my dad up. So what could I do with the lads? It'd be good. And I come in the next morning. Why is he hadn't done much preparation? But it went off well, and it's funny that Wisey actually went into management and I didn't, and he did quite well for a while.
Wisey was the greatest at winging it, wasn't he? He winged. But the reason I did that as a manager, I wanted you guys as players. I did it with a couple of other pairs. I want you to understand. I wish I'd have had it done to me when I was a player. because it makes you suddenly realise what the coaches and the manager suddenly for a day got something to think about, the responsibility. And it was just really a little experiment to try and make players think slightly different than and looking at the team and the bigger picture. And it was very funny.
Well, I mean, you taught us a lot. I think, if you think about the chapter on Chelsea, the Kings Road Revolution, I call it, is you really did create that in terms of changing our mindset, everything from diet to training facilities to training itself to even like playing in Europe, I remember as well, you did training sessions with us at times where you played us, if we had a practice match, in different positions. So we, again, like I might be put a right back for 20 minutes, to get us to be able to understand the game and to see bigger picture. And so all those, you think of what we got to the European Cup semi-final in your second season, and the team, the squad itself was, it was quite a remarkable achievement. And then you had to play so many British players,
English players. It was English players. So we had Stevie Clark, who was Scottish. We had a Russian goalkeeper, in Dimitri. I mean, that was such a test as a group of players. Do you remember Graham Ricks was my youth team manager, and Rixie, we signed him on. Rick played a few games. Yeah. And it was an amazing feat to get to the semis. I mean, it would have been great to go to the final. It would have been against Arsenal, ironically. But it's all ifs and buts, isn't it, football? Now, I want to ask you a question. That year we got to the final, right? What was it about Manchester United that you loved playing against? Because you almost got there single-handed. That season, every time we played United, score sheet.
Yeah, well, you signed me from Newcastle, and I remember you were interested in me the year before when you were at Swindon, and the timing was right to come. And I think that season I just scored really important goals, league goals, but also every round of the FA Cup to the final. And I remember it was fairly early in the season. We played United at the Bridge, and we had the game plan. I was playing up front with big Tony Cascarino that day as well, just off of Cass. And I mean, Stevie Clark, you were involved in build-up, I think, as well. You clipped the ball in, it got cleared out. Stevie Clark drove the ball in, and it came off Schmeichel, and I was quick on the rebounds, got there and chipped it over him, roof of the net. And I remember going out for dinner that night with Amanda in the town in London and seeing the newspapers be on the street quite, maybe midnight. And there was a little headline at the top of the front page that I'd scored the winner against Man United. So I thought, boy, this is a great, because, my 1.25 million was a significant fee. I wanted to get off to a decent start with the fans. So that started me off well. And then we went up in the February, March time to Old Trafford. I remember you said to me, it's the first time I played at Old Trafford as well. You said, you may get one opportunity in this game, and you got to stick it away. And we had our game plan and hit them on the break. And then it came to me and I was through. And I just believed I was going to score. I think I was midfielder, really, primarily attacking midfield, but had a striker's instinct and ruthlessness in the box.
That's why I wanted you to play. I mean, I was playing with a player off the front. And that's where I wanted you. That's where I saw you for Swindon, funny enough, when I tried to get you for Swindon. And then I knew straight away, Ken Bates said, what player do you, we haven't got a great big budget, but I said, I know exactly, it's Gavin Peacock. He will score goals from midfield. He's a midfield attacker, and that's what I'm looking for. And I knew you'd be your assist goals, and you did the job. And let's face it, that season as well, going to that, how perhaps our destinies may have changed when, at Wembley, when you, just before half time, you hit the bar.
Hit that bar, yeah. I mean, I start off my book with the cup final itself, and inches the fine line between victory and defeat, and it really was. I mean, that we were playing well first half as well. I thought it was even, if not maybe us on the front foot. And then 20 minutes in, the ball's come down to me, and I flicked it from right to left. It didn't matter. I was pretty two-footed, and I just let fly, and I knew that Schmeichel was beaten, and it was as if everything went into slow motion, and he's backpedaling, he stretches, and then bang, and an instant it hits the bar and comes off. And I do think, everyone says it, if we'd gone 1-0 up there, that we would have kind of been tight, we would have taken them to the white, probably maybe even won the game.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? They were a fabulous side, but it put us in the driving seat without a doubt. And ironically, is it the year after they? I look back at that. And they when Di Matteo scores after how many seconds, it hits the bar and goes in.
Same bar, bar, each lower.
And that's like you're saying, the small things are so big in football. Yeah.
Listen, I was at that final in May '94. I came over. I lived in Berlin at the time. I flew over for the semi, where you scored both goals against Luton Town, 2-0 win. I flew back home, managed to get a ticket for the final. I don't know how. Flew back over for the final. And just let me read the teams to you, because this will really put that game into perspective, how well Glenn did with the Chelsea team. This is the Chelsea team on the day. It was Dimitri Karin, Stevie Clark, and we had Kjellberg, Jonsson, Sinclair, Dennis Wise captain, Eddie Newton, Craig Burley, Gavin, Mark Steen, and John Spencer. That was the Chelsea team. Listen to the United lineup. You ready for this? Schmeichel, Paul Parker, Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, Dennis Irwin, Kanchelskis, Roy Keane, Paul Ince, Ryan Giggs, Eric Cantona, Mark Hughes. Hello, what were we doing there?
Our best player was on the bench, the gaffer. I kept looking across. He's got to come on soon. We could get a goal, but we had quick fullbacks with Clark and Sinclair, and Glenn, taught us tactically to be aware. But I was even aware of the change in football, even in your final season in charge of us, Glenn, is you started to play a little bit more, even the squad system we were playing in a way that sometimes I remember I'd scored and then you'd maybe leave me out of the game, or Spenny, and it was more of becoming that sort of squad game, because keeping us at our peak and edge and tweaking things slightly from game to game. It was a little bit different for me because I was old school. British players just want to play every single game. I mean, one season I think I played 55 games in my second season, the Europe game. Last sort of 10 games, I was probably running at about 80% because of it.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely spot on. And I think it was something that was certainly I'd learned a little bit like that in Monaco with Arsene Wenger. But you have to do that, you have to feel confident that you've got the depth in your squad. Nowadays, that's, in the modern day game now, that's completely different. You look at Chelsea's squad now, it's incredible how you can do that and rotate and look at all sorts of other things, actually, which I learned later on as a manager, actually, in biorhythms and things like that. You had a squad of players that were pretty much, 23 strong players. You would use biorhythms, believe me, incredibly, which I looked into later on in my career as a manager. So, nowadays, we were just starting, because I felt confident in the depth that we were getting slightly stronger, and we were playing in that way, and Rude had come, and Petrescu, Mark Hughes, there was a depth to us, and sometimes players, need that rest. But getting back to your lovely book, so what gave you the idea? Who approached you, and what was? Have you always wanted to do this sort of book, your autobiography?
Yeah, I've kind of really kept away from it a little bit, and then the director of publishing at Christian Focus approached me about 5 years ago. Said, "Oh, you should write your biography. It'd be interesting for people." And I thought about it, and I thought, well, some players write a biography when they're playing or just after they finished, and maybe if I attempt now, I was age 50 when I started writing it. At half a century, it's pretty significant marker, and I thought, well, it is a different story from pitch to punditry to pulpit. And I think maybe I've got a certain maturity now at this age to reflect well on it, and to write it in such a way that would engage people. And I think of it as just a story of life in all of its complexities, set against the backdrop of the beautiful game, but with the floodlight of my Christian faith on it. And so I wrote it in a way that it's like a human interest story as well, because I deal with suffering and life and death and disability and racism, and family and fatherhood and even career and starting again, all within football. It's a study of leadership. I mean, it's a study of great leaders. I mean, I played for three England managers, you know, those kinds of things. And so that was the idea, that the time of life to do it and to then write it in such a way that would engage people and be different. And I thought at this stage of life, I've got maybe the ability to do it. And it's come together, and I didn't use a ghostwriter either.
That's exactly what I was going to just ask you, Gav. It looks to me as if you wrote that yourself, which is so admirable. It really is. You've written it fantastically. You did that yourself. Because I know if I, you know, I'm sort of in the start of an autobiography myself, but I'm using a ghostwriter. That's what really has impressed me with the book.
Yeah, I did it all myself, because I write a lot anyway at the moment. I'm always doing, you know, I'm writing a sermon, or I'm writing an email to someone. I'm trying to kind of give counsel or different things like that. So I'm used to writing, and I always enjoyed writing. I mean, I didn't know if I could do it till I started. I started with the cup final because I wanted to draw people in and take them with me onto the field and write it in the present tense, and then I go back to the beginning and flow through. And yeah, and, you know, it was just, it came out quite well, and I've had lots of people read it like yourself and all the other people that have endorsed it. And so you don't have to be a Christian to read it. You don't have to be even a football fan to read it. But I think if you're either, you will enjoy the book. And I hope it sort of encourages people as well. I think it'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry at different points. And it'll certainly make you think. And I do open up about, you know, different difficult things in life. And even when my son, Jake, was born without his hand and all of that.
It's almost like when you're doing that, it's like an inner healing as well. Going over things that sometimes you've forgotten, and suddenly they're coming out, and it's almost like a cleansing in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite cathartic. And I think I've reflected back as well. I say to everyone should write their memoirs or their autobiography, even if you don't publish it. I think it's a good thing, like you just said. And one of the things that struck me, Glenn, was as I wrote it, God, the amount of people that have helped me in my life, the amount of people that helped me, I just reflect on this one and that coach and that coach, and the little things that you can forget, you know, little things like you would give me I remember you giving me a few days off in that first season because I had to go up to Great Ormond Street with my son to get, because he was born without his right hand, to get the different prosthetics, and maybe things that you may forget as well, like people that read it, that, oh yeah, I forgot I did that for someone, you know, so that people have helped you down and we can get, I think, in sometimes so maybe discouraged or maybe even a bit bitter in life, but when we do look back, we can actually and reflect properly, we actually see, I got a lot of more help than I actually realized in life.
Yeah, that's very true. I'll tell you, there's a humorous part. I'm gonna in reading the book, it was interesting, and I've just realised how you had this common denominator with Cass, because I didn't realise you every day you shared a car with him. Now, there's something else in the book that you share as well. Do you remember?
Are you talking about the shirt thing?
Yeah.
That I didn't know Cass did that as well.
He did that in the Irish game in the World Cup against I think it was Holland or wherever they were playing in America. He went. Big Jack said to him, "You're going on, right?" And he
hadn't got his shirt on.
He forgot his shirt underneath on the bench.
That's worse than what I did for England under 19s then.
Yeah, exactly. But now I know why. The pair of you went in the same car for all these years at Chelsea. He rubbed off on you.
He did, yeah, he did. But he was funny. Cass was funny. He made me laugh like no one else, you know. And he was a bit older than me as well, so kind of I would get all the stories of Jack Charlton and the Irish and all of this. But there's a few funny stories in the book, and I think it lets people into the dressing room a little bit and the humour of the lads. And I think, I mean, you talked about fear. I think a lot, I don't know what you think, but a lot of dressing room humour, especially like around match day, is a kind of to inoculate you against the fear a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how some deal with it.
I think it's the insecurity of players, and when you're younger as well, there's a lot of insecurities in there, and if it goes over that line to fear, then it's debilitating as a performer. So that's the real problem you've got as an individual, and that is there for everyone. I don't care who you are, if you're Johan Cruyff or Zidane when they started, it's there for everyone, and that's what you've got to try and work out, isn't it? And that's the pressure that comes upon you when you're in the public eye playing football, particularly. So, and it can be a harsh environment as well. Football, we know that, but you've got to be strong, and you showed that strength. To be at 18, that's what really hit me. I didn't realise you were 18 when you had your faith and your life start, your perspective in life was different to anyone else, and I didn't realise that. I thought it might have been when you were 25, 26 later on.
No, and I told all the lads in the dressing room. So the senior lads then at QPR, you had Terry Fennick and John Gregory and Stevie Wicks. It was a tough dressing room. Yeah. And so I got a bit of stick, but then they look to see if your walk matches, your talk. Footballers they're shrewd. You go in the field of battle with each other, so you begin character pretty quick, and if people are trying to pull the wool over your eyes. So I had some good conversations down the years with different players, and it was quite a privilege.
It was great. It was great to hear you as well in the books talking about your relationship with Wisey. Totally different personalities, but you gelled, and you certainly played well together. You certainly gelled on the football pitch. From my perspective, as a manager, that's what you need to build a team, and that was wonderful to read.
Yeah, totally different backgrounds. Me and Wisey, different characters, but got on well. I think there was a mutual respect there. I think there was a time where we were both in a couple of England training squads, and we were both thinking, who's gonna, would we one or both get an England cap, and of course, Wisey went on to get the caps. I was just a little bit short. Maybe you think, could have probably good enough to maybe get one cap. If things had gone right, if there'd been an injury or two, and you get in the squad. But
that's right. And if you take the opportunity, if that's all ifs and buts in sport. But if you had that chance, you score on the day, then suddenly you go up the pecking order a little bit in the manager's eyes, and then suddenly you get the confidence. Not you, I want anyone overall.
Anyone.
That's how it works. That's how sometimes that slim moment is such a big moment, and if it doesn't occur, okay, it doesn't occur. You get on with life and you take it as it is. But they're the opportunities that possibly come round in all ways. Whether it's national or club football or other sports or in life. I've always looked at that and thought there's those little moments that you have to. And at that time, sometimes you don't see it coming like that.
No.
But it can have a big effect on people's lives.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Well,
even though you're based over in Canada these days, your book, A Greater Glory, From Pitch to Pulpit, is going to be available worldwide. It comes out on the 7th of May. So it's right there, fresh from the printers. And can we order it just about anywhere that you will go online and bookshops these days, Gavin?
Yeah, I think in all the major bookshops, and obviously Amazon as well. They've gone to a second print already because there's been quite a lot of pre-orders. So,
that's just showing off, that is, I'm afraid.
It may be a little bit. As we spoken, I've just got an email through from the publishers, so maybe they've got those out there. But no, I think I just hope people will get the book, pretty quick after they order it. But yes, any of the major outlets, and Christian Focus itself would be available as well to purchase it from.
Yeah. Is it on Audible?
That is something. It's a great question, because a few people have asked me about that, and I think it will be. I think they've talked about it,
you'll narrate it.
I'll do it. Yeah,
I think that's the best way to do it. I think that's great.
A lot of people are sort of reading or taking books in that way now, aren't they?
Yeah, I do. I know if I go on my walks, I love listening on Audible. Yeah, you just lose yourself. It's great. It's really, really
yeah.
of listening to the book rather than obviously reading it.
Yeah.
Listen, it's been great for me to sit here and listen to you two guys, as you called him Gaffer, which we had to edit out at the beginning because he's not the Gaffer anymore, although he probably still is the Gaffer, isn't he, Gavin, really?
I think once someone's been your Gaffer, like Glenn was for me, and did so much for me, it's always that, I think of him in that light. So even though he says don't call him Gaffer, in my mind is still that way. And I just, it's a great opportunity as well in the book to thank people like Glenn, who did a lot for me, and obviously one of the biggest influences in my career and many people's careers, because you wouldn't have been the player I was without that. And also for reading the book, Glenn, and giving me a good endorsement. It's on the top of the front of the book. So
it's wonderful. No, I really, really enjoy it. And, it's a must read. It really is. If you, as you say, you don't have to love football and because there's so much in there. It really is. But I've got to say, I'm just being honest, I would put you, Gav, as for 1.2 is in the top 3 of my buys that I've ever made. Robbie Keane, the likes of him, Rude Hullet on a free, obviously, was yourself up there. And you're a pleasure to work with as well. You were absolutely such a professional, quite incredible, great example to the youngsters in the club as well. That's always important from a manager's perspective, So fantastic. It's great to see you get such a success in your life and doing what you want to do.
So the question is for you: are you going to come back into coaching at some point?
Oh, I don't know. No, I don't know if those days are gone now, Gav.
Well, I think you should be myself. Your mind needs to be in there. So, and if you needed like a younger coach, you want to bring on the wing.
Well, you never say never in football.
No.
Yeah.
This is the longest distance job interview application I've ever heard.
And self-promotion from me to get Glenn a job so I can come in.
There's one slight problem there, Chris. I've got to get a job.
Gavin, it's been great for me to meet you, and it's been great, I know, for Glenn to catch up with you. We thank you very much. I know you're very busy, and you want another chapter. Update that last chapter. You want to do a third edition of it. So
that phone call could be a club, Gav.
Yeah, it is actually for you. It's actually my mother-in-law.
Well, you've got to answer that. Cut us. Don't worry about us. You better get that one, Gav.
Yeah, brilliant.
To get in touch with Glenn with a question for a future Footy Show podcast, you can email Glenn at midnightuk.co.uk or send a tweet to @midnightmix.
Let's get the Evening Standard questions in. We'll start off with Maria, who asked, were you surprised to see Jose Mourinho go straight back into a job at Roma?
No, I wasn't. Particularly Roma. I wouldn't have said that it would be Roma that he would go, but I didn't think it would be that long that Jose would end up at another club. And I felt it would be abroad. So no, I wasn't. I wasn't shocked at all. I thought that he looked like he was, ready to continue. He didn't look to me as if it was somebody that needed a rest or a year off or whatever. No, I was not surprised one little bit. I felt that Roma's going to be a big challenge because they need a bit of a rebuild. Italian football isn't what it was 10 years ago, but there's every likelihood that Jose could go there and rebuild that team and be successful. So yeah, I thought he might go. He's been excellent. He's done excellent in Italy, didn't he? And in Inter Milan, he did the treble. So who knows? I think there might be. It's a real challenge. I think he might have. The only thing I was surprised that he might not waited for another challenge to come up, maybe a bigger offer, or not a bigger offer, but a squad that he felt could do something. I think Roma, they performed against Man United, but looking at him, I thought, they've got a lot of work to do, and he has got a lot of work to do that. But no, it's good for him that he's back in football. And I think, the Italians won't worry about what he's done in England. They'll be looking at his past, what he's done in Italy. So, and rightly so.
Alan asked, do you think Tottenham should keep Gareth Bale for another year?
That is a slight conundrum. It's not an easy one. From outside looking in, it's not easy to know what sort of money he's on, what it would take for him to stay. he's played some really good games against the sort of mid-table and down near the bottom. He's had some wonderful games. Now, if I saw more consistency in him playing like that, then I would say yes, definitely. And that's what I was hoping when he arrived. I thought it was a good signing. I thought if he played a little bit more like that consistently, then certainly you would be look to sign him on again if it wasn't, ridiculous money. But no, at the moment there's that inconsistency there with Gareth, and I just feel that you want him to show you that he wants to do it every game, whatever minutes he's on the pitch. He's got to be, that desire's got to be there. And at the moment, there's a question mark about that.
And then Thomas asked, who do you fancy in the Champions League final? Has Thomas Tuchel got the measure of Pep Guardiola?
Well, this is the $60 million question. To beat Man City 3 times in a row is going to be, well, you'd think it's impossible, but that's what Chelsea have got to do. They've knocked them out the FA Cup. They beat them in the league away, in their own backyard, be it with no fans, but it's still a wonderful performance and result. Their confidence will be sky high. They will believe. They'll go toe to toe on that pitch. They'll look at each other in the eye down that tunnel. They'll look at each other on, when the whistle's going, and Chelsea will feel we've got it over you at the moment. We feel we can beat you. And obviously City will be playing their full time, the team that they feel is their number one team. It's going to be a hell of a game, I really do. But no, Chelsea can win this Champions League. There's no doubt about it. If City really turn it on, if City play at their absolute maximum, then you could see them winning it as well. So that's how tight it is. It's so tough to call. Either team will go there feeling they're going to win this final, and all that's going to do is make every neutral in the world that's watching right around the world very happy, because we're going to be looking for a really good game.
It's been a bad week for North London. Spurs lost and Arsenal went out at the semi-final stage as well. I know you said Spurs probably need a few players to bolster their squad. Do they need a rebuild? What's the situation, do you think?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that Arsenal and Tottenham, two massive clubs in London, are finding themselves really in a situation where they're looking up. They're looking up at Chelsea and West Ham at the moment. Who would have thought that? You've got both. There's a set of crowds that, fans that are looking to try and get owners changed. There's both squads need work on. There's no doubt about it. And both squads, don't forget, have had money spent on them as well. It's not like there's been no money spent, but unfortunately, it looks like there needs to be a rebuild. The only slight advantage at the moment Arsenal have is that they've got some very, very good youngsters of about 20, 21. A little bit older than maybe. There's a batch at Spurs came through with Kane and Dele Alli, although Dele was bought. Rose, Walker at the time. There was a young crop of players that came through at Tottenham. Yeah. And Pochettino had them playing like that. Now, I feel that Arsenal youngsters are ahead of Spurs youngsters. There's a batch of Spurs boys that we haven't really seen yet. I'm hearing there's some good youngsters there, but every club says that. Every club wants good youngsters. But they're not really had the experience like the Arsenal players youngsters have. So that's where Arsenal has slightly got an advantage. If they keep them youngsters in the next 2 or 3 years, they'll get better and better and closer to their peak. So, but both clubs find themselves in a similar boat.
Got to congratulate Chelsea, Manchester City and Manchester United all getting through to their finals, and also got to congratulate Chelsea women's team and Emma Hayes, the job she's done there, Glenn, over the past few years to get Chelsea into the final of the Champions League as well for the women's. A fantastic performance and a display and really strong mentality.
Yeah, no, she's done an absolute fabulous job, hasn't she? Obviously City have got a strong women's team as well, but wonderful to get to the final and to have both, Chelsea have men and women's in the Champions League final is a wonderful feat. It really is. Now, finals are all about winning. And at the end of the day, wouldn't it be some double if Chelsea did win both games? They've got a long way to go. It's going to be a hell of a fight on their hands to do that. But no, it would be wonderful for Chelsea Football Club if that did happen. And it can happen. I think, Chelsea women, what I've seen a few games that they're a very strong side, very, very strong indeed. So, it's on. The double actually is on.
Well, that's all for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay safe, enjoy the FA Cup final, and we'll see you again next week on the Glenn Hoddle Footy Show.
That's all for today. See you next week.